Hey there, it's Cori, back for another yoga video. And if you watched the last video, you may have noticed that we have this pretty sweet open space that's come available in our house recently. But the reason it's become available is because our roommate, Lacey, recently moved out, which is very sad. We miss her. We wish she were still here. But at the same time, it's a little bit happy because now I have the space to do yoga and make videos about yoga and do other activities that you can do with an empty room in your house. So I have this sad reaction to our roommate moving out and a happy reaction to having a space available to practice yoga. All of this reminds me of a story that I learned about 2 years ago when I did my teacher training at Dharma Yoga in Austin, Texas. And it's actually come back to me a couple times in recent weeks, so I would love to share it with you. But first, let's take a moment to get settled in, starting to listen to your breath. So you'll either start in a seated upright position like this, and you can be up on a block or up on a pillow, or down on your back, somewhere that's comfortable for you. And I'll share the story. So as the story goes, it happens in China, and there's this dad-type farmer guy. He has a horse, and one day his horse runs away. And his neighbors come over. It's a pretty small village, so everybody knows everybody's business. They come over and they're like, "Oh man, your horse ran away. That's terrible. What are you going to do?" And the farmer says, "Well, I don't know whether it's terrible or if it's good. All I know is that my horse ran away. We'll see what happens." Then the next day, his horse comes back, comes with a bunch of other horses. So now he has many horses, and the villagers come back over and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you must be so pleased, so excited. Your horse is back. You have multiple horses now. That's so awesome. What are you going to do?" And the farmer's like, "Whoa, I really don't know whether it's good or bad. I just know now I got a bunch of horses. We'll see what happens." Then the next day, his son is helping him to break in one of the horses, and he gets thrown off and breaks his leg. Villagers come back over. They're like, "Oh no, your son fell off the horse. Your son's leg is broken. What are you going to do? You don't have as much help out in the fields." And the farmer's like, "Well, I really don't know if it's terrible or not. All I know is that my son has broken his leg. Calm down, everybody." So they leave. And the next day or the next week or so, the government comes into their village to round up all the young men to go off to fight in a war. So they're drafting everybody. And the son's not able to go because he's injured. He has a broken leg, so he's saved from this drafting that occurs. So from the story, we learn this theory of non-reaction, where we recognize that it's so hard from our little spot in the present moment and our point in the universe to know whether something that happens to us is good or bad and how it's going to pan out in the future. And a lot of the suffering that we feel is based on our reaction to the event or what happened to us, and not actually based on the event itself. So we'll try to embody that a little bit in our practice today. I'll share with you 3 of my favorite poses and 3 of my least favorite poses, and you might have your own opinions of them. So we'll just practice not being attached to how our minds are reacting to being in a certain pose. So from wherever you are on your mat, start to make your way into a tabletop position. We'll meet there. We'll come through a few rounds of cat and cow pose just to get warmed up. On your inhales, we'll drop the belly down towards the floor, gazing up high, draw the shoulders back, lift through your tailbone. On your exhale, round your spine, tucking your chin and your tailbone down towards the mat. We'll shift back and forth between those 2 poses a few times. Doing anything that feels good on your spine. Making it curve like an S, shifting your hips from side to side, maybe bringing your neck in little circles too. We'll just take a few breaths here. This is a neutral pose for me. And we'll come back into a straight spine. We'll tuck the toes under and start to make our way into our first downward facing dog. Make sure your fingers are spread wide. We'll lift the hips up and back. Keep a nice bend in the knees if it helps you lift your tailbone higher. Let your heels grow heavy down towards the mat. Working on bringing the backs of the legs straight. Pressing down through all 10 of your knuckles. And bringing your shoulders away from your ears in our downward facing dog. We'll start to rise up high on the balls of the feet. And we'll take little steps to bring your feet up behind your hands. We'll meet in a forward fold at the top of your mat. Taking a little sway from side to side here. Grabbing your elbows if you like. We're just letting your arms hang down heavy. Nice bend in the knees. Grounding through both feet. Then we'll let our upper body hang, bend a little deeper into your knees. We'll start to roll all the way up to standing, really slowly unwinding the spine. We'll come up to our Tadasana mountain pose, palms come to face forward. We'll inhale to reach both arms out and up overhead. Exhale your hands down into your heart. Close your eyes, connecting back to our intention of non-reaction here in our practice today. We'll take an inhale together. Exhale, sending our intention out into the world. We'll blink the eyes open, reach your arms back up. Exhale, we'll come back down into our forward fold, coming through a flat back, letting your belly melt down onto your thighs. We'll inhale to a halfway lift, bringing your fingertips to the floor or your hands to your shins, and then stretch the crown of your head away from your tailbone. We'll inhale here. Exhale, belly comes back down onto your thighs. We'll plant the hands and we'll step your left foot to the back of your mat. We'll lower the back knee down and we'll come into Anjaneyasana or low lunge here. Reach your arms up by your ears. Make sure your right knee is not coming too far past your right ankle. It can come a little bit past. And then imagine like you could drag your right foot and your left knee together. You'll find a little lift from your center line. We'll reach our arms up a little bit higher. Bring your gaze up to your fingers. Inhale here. And then on our exhale, we'll bring the hands down around to frame the front foot. Then we're going to start to shift our left foot over to the right edge of your mat. So you'll bring that shin parallel to the back of your mat. We'll bring the left hand all the way to the back. And we'll start to sweep your right arm up and over your right ear. Stargazer pose, one of my favorites. I just love expanding, coming into an almost back bend so early in class because I'm pretty bendy in my back. You might not like it as much. You won't be here for long. And just to work into our shoulders, we'll take a big sweep around with our top arm, kind of like you have a helicopter propeller. And we'll take that 2 more times in this direction. And then we'll switch it up, take it 3 times in the other direction. And then reach your right fingers out towards the back of your mat once more. Inhale here. And on your exhale, we'll walk back around. Bring your hands back to the front of your mat. Back toes point back. We'll lift the back knee up. Step the right foot back to meet the left. You can lower your knees on the way or keep your spine straight. We'll come all the way down to the belly. Untuck your toes. We'll take 3 rounds of cobra pose here. So we'll inhale to lift the chest, keeping just a little bit of weight in your hands, pressing down through the tops of your feet. Exhale lowers us down. 2 more times. This is just another warm-up pose. Not one of my favorites or least favorites. Not attached to this pose at all. On our next round, we'll press up through tabletop or through a high plank. If you have a regular vinyasa practice, we'll meet in our downward facing dog. And from our downward facing dog, on our next inhale, we'll start to lift up onto the balls of the feet. Take the same steps up to the top of your mat.
Winding up in another forward fold. And this time we'll lift up halfway to a flat back. Exhale back into your fold. Then inhale, we'll rise all the way back up to standing. Sweeping our arms out and up overhead. On our exhale, we go right back down. We'll inhale back to our half lift. On our exhale, we'll plant the hands. This time we step the right foot to the back of your mat. Lower the back knee down. We'll come into our Anjaneyasana on this side. Sinking a little bit into your right hip flexor, but still finding that sense of lift from your center. Like you could draw your inner thighs together here. Reach your fingers a little higher. Bring your gaze up towards the ceiling. Inhale here. Exhale, we'll bring our hands down around to frame the front foot. We'll start to shift on the back knee, kicking your right foot over to the left edge of your mat. Right hand comes to plant at the back. We'll straighten through the left leg. Left arm sweeps up and over your ear. Imagining like you're gazing at some stars here up at the ceiling. We'll start to take those big circles with your top arm, like a helicopter. We'll take 3 to one side, and then 3, sweeping the other way. Pose number 1 of my favorite poses in this video. Then we'll take the arms back around. Hands will frame your front foot, back toes point back. We'll lift the back knee up. Step the left foot back to meet it. If you want to come down in a high plank this time, we'll just bend at the elbows, keeping them tucked in by your sides, coming all the way down to the belly. Untuck your toes for 1 round of cobra. We'll inhale, lifting the chest. Exhale to lower back down. Then we'll press up through plank pose, or through hands and knees. We'll meet back in our downward facing dog. Take an inhale here. Exhale, let it go out your mouth. Then we'll rise up onto the toes. Make your way up to the top of your mat if you like to take a big step or hop up there. We'll meet in our forward fold with the feet together. And we'll set up for chair pose here, so actually you can have the feet together or hips distance apart. We'll sit the hips down low, bringing the thighs almost parallel to the mat. Reach the arms up by your ears, tuck your tailbone under. Make sure you can see your toes underneath your knees. Saying hi to your toes. And we'll tuck the belly in, draw your bottom 2 ribs in closer to your chest. Utkatasana. I'm sure you can guess that this is not one of my favorite poses. It's one of my least favorite poses, and actually one of the reasons why I have to go to yoga instead of just conducting my own practice, because I would never do chair pose. We'll take another inhale here. Non-attachment. We fold into our forward fold. Inhale, we'll lift up halfway, flat back. Exhale, plant your hands. Step your feet back, coming right into downward facing dog or coming through a vinyasa here. Your choice. Adding in any modifications along the way, or skipping that vinyasa altogether, perfectly welcome. We'll meet back in our downward facing dog. On your next inhale, start to lift your right leg, keeping the toes pointing down towards the mat, straightening it back behind you. We'll bend into the knee, start to bring the foot forward in between your hands. And then we'll set up for warrior 2. So drop your back heel down, keep your feet in the same line, and then we'll unrun the arms, bringing them out to parallel. We rise up into our warrior 2, coming back to the breath. Bringing your gaze to rest on your front middle finger. Deep bend in your front knee, and warrior 2 is just a transition pose to get into another one of my favorite poses. We'll straighten through the front leg. Start to reach your right fingertips forward, hips bump back. We'll come into triangle pose, Trikonasana. Your bottom hand can come down onto your shin, your ankle, or onto the outside of your foot, down on your mat. Then you start to shift your gaze up towards your top thumb. Spread your top fingers wide and keep that arm active.
Thinking about rotating your left hip right on top of your right. And then when we're ready to come up, we'll start to lift from our top hand like someone has hold of it and is drawing us back up towards the ceiling. We'll sink back down into the front knee, coming back to our warrior two. Inhale here. Exhale, rotate your arms down onto the mat. We'll step back into downward facing dog or come through a vinyasa here if you choose. And we'll always meet back in our downward facing dog. From our down dog, on the second side, we'll lift the left heel high, straight back behind you. Exhale to step your foot up in between your hands and take 1 or 2 steps to get there, however many you need. Lower the back heel down, open up, coming into your warrior two. A deep bend in your front knee, and looking down to the inside of that knee, make sure you can see your big toe to the inside. If not, you just externally rotate a little bit. And seal the back edge of your back foot down onto the mat. Stretch your 2 sets of fingertips apart from each other. Find your breath in your warrior two. And we'll start to straighten through the front leg. Stretch your left fingertips forward, hips bump back. And then we'll take our arms like a clock, coming into Trikonasana. We'll reach the right arm high this time, gazing up towards the fingertips. Or if that bothers your neck, you can just look down right at your foot underneath you. Think about creating length in both sides of your body. Releasing any tension, any resistance. If this is not one of your favorite poses, I'm sorry. And we'll start to lead back up to standing, starting with our top hand. We'll shift back through our warrior two. Take an inhale here. Exhale, hands come down to the mat. Step back through your vinyasa. And you know, you can skip it. Come to your downward facing dog. From your downward facing dog, we'll take an inhale all together through the nose. Exhale out your mouth. As you release the breath, we'll bend into the knees, gaze forward, and bring your feet up behind your hands. We'll meet in a forward fold. Inhale lifts you up halfway. Exhale back down into your fold. Then we'll inhale to rise all the way up to standing, coming up with a flat back. Exhale, your hands down through heart center. We'll come back into Tadasana, our mountain pose. In your mountain pose, find some space between your feet so they're right underneath your hips. And then we'll start to ground into the left foot. And we're going to shift so the right knee comes right up in line with the right hip. We'll keep that foot flexed. We're either going to stay here or start to wrap both hands around your knee, bringing your spine straight up tall. This is option 2. And then option 3, we come into one of my most hated poses, but I'm not having a reaction to it. And we'll start to straighten, kicking the foot out in front of you. We grab hold around the outside of the foot. So ideally you want to have your spine straight. Have really tight hamstrings, so that's even hard for me to do. Finding your way back to your breath here in Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana. And if you haven't taken any of the 3 options, we're just standing here, finding your balance, keeping that bottom foot engaged, keeping the knee lifted. We'll stay for another inhale. And on our exhale, we'll lower the right foot down, shifting your way back and forth, finding your way back into your mountain pose. And then we'll bring the weight into the right foot this time. We'll start to bring the left leg up, bending at the knee, flexing into your bottom foot. And then you choose your option. You might stay here working on your balance and your core strength, or start to interlace your hands on the outside of your knee. drawing your shoulders right over your hips. And then third option, you can start to interlace your hands on the bottom of your foot, and we'll start to extend that leg straight out in front of you, working your way into a straight spine. Taking your wobbles back and forth, enjoying them along the way. Keeping a little bend in your standing leg. Bringing your gaze down onto your big toe, playing with the placement of your gaze, or picking a point on the ground in front of you that's not moving to settle your gaze upon. We'll start to rebend into that leg if you took that option. Take an inhale. Exhale back into your Tadasana, shaking out the legs if you need to. We'll inhale, sweep the arms out and up overhead. Exhale down into heart center. We'll inhale to bring the arms out and up once more, touching the palms overhead. Exhale back down into your forward fold. Inhale to a halfway lift. Exhale, plant your hands. We'll step back to our down dog or take it through one more vinyasa here. We will meet back in our down dog. Setting up for one of my favorite poses, especially favorite restorative poses. We'll inhale the right heel up high. Take the right knee behind your right wrist. Ankle works its way over behind the left wrist. We'll walk the back toes back a little bit. And then start to come to a proud pigeon first. Lengthening through your spine. Drawing your inner thighs together for a little lift in your hips. And then we'll walk our way out into pigeon pose. Either grounding through your forearms or starting to walk your arms out so you can bring your forehead down to the mat. Take another inhale in your pigeon. On your exhale, we'll start to bring your hands back up to the top of your mat. Tuck your back toes under. And we'll lift the hips up and back, setting your right foot next to your left. And we'll switch over to our other side, inhaling the left heel high. Exhaling to bring your knee behind your left wrist. And working the left ankle over to the other side. We'll walk the back toes back, rising up on your fingertips at first, setting up for your pigeon. And then we'll start to walk our way out, either down onto your elbows or all the way stretched out on your mat. Connecting to your breath here. And especially in these poses where our bodies are very still, paying attention to the way your mind is reacting or not reacting, whether you enjoy being in a deep hip opener or not. And take another breath in your pigeon. And as you breathe out, start to walk your hands back up to the top of your mat. We'll tuck the toes under back behind you, lift the hips up, step back into your downward facing dog. We'll inhale here. And as you exhale, start to walk your feet about halfway up your mat. We'll come down onto a seat. And about the middle of your mat. So in your seated pose, we're going to bring the legs out wider than your mat. So there's about a 90-degree angle between your thighs. We'll roll the flesh out of the way of the sits bones so they ground down. Flex into your toes so they point up towards the sky, then your thighs are pointing up too. Then we're going to come to Upavista Konasana. You'll find what's happening in your lower back. Start to walk your fingers out, coming down into a forward fold. If you find that your lower back is rounding a lot, you might not go very far. So sometimes I even press my fingertips down and just try to keep my spine really straight, move my sits bones toward the back of the room, and try to lean my heart forward, keeping my spine long. Some people have really open hips, really loosen their hamstrings. They can go all the way out and still have their back flat. I find that I can only get about this far with my low back staying straight instead of rounding. You want to keep your toes pointing up towards the sky the whole time. And you can see here that I can't go very far, so this is why it is one of my least favorite poses. And I don't even teach it most of the time. But here we are, non-reaction, my seated forward fold. Give yourself a few breaths here, going to your fullest expression of the pose. Noticing how it feels for you if you're attached to a certain outcome, like bringing your chest to the floor, and it's just not part of what your body's going to be doing today. Just pay attention to how your mind reacts to that. Are you accepting of yourself, or are you in competition with the way that your body's working? And we'll come out of it, starting to walk our fingers back up towards our body. We'll draw the feet together, give them a little shake here, and then we'll make our way down onto our backs. Making sure you have a spot to roll down to. We'll draw the knees in towards the chest, and give a little rock from side to side. We'll take the hands in between the knees, grab hold of the outsides of your feet, happy baby. Letting go of any of the poses that were your favorites or your least favorite, knowing that the pose term asana only means vessel, and we are free to infuse it with whatever intention we supply. We'll draw our knees back into our chest. Give yourself a nice big hug. Inhale here. Exhale, we'll expand out long into our Shavasana. Close your eyes. Soften through your feet, your hands, your face. Let your tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. Let your teeth separate. Feel yourself completely relaxed. Give yourself some time to come out of what is so many people's favorite yoga pose, your Shavasana. And as you make your way back up to a seat or come back into your breath, I'll offer you this quote from Kurt Vonnegut that says, "The truth is, we know so little about life, we really don't know what the good news is and what the bad news is." So thank you for watching. As you go about your day, watch how you're reacting to the different events that happen to you. I appreciate you. Namaste.